we have some different topics here. I'll try to keep everybody in the same area right now.
Ms. Beaver had said quite a few of the same things that I wanted to address, because I actually did print off the board minutes. And I seen the school calendar, so I'm not going to tie up a big bunch of your time. All I wanted to ask is, I guess, is to reiterate, is the fact that it says in the board minutes on June the 19th that there was 220 days for 10 months. So, and I am a military wife, so I understand all of DFAS and all of that. I've been doing it for, God, forever. But anyway, and I do understand that, you know, with the military, a month is a month, no matter how you calculate it. And DFAS doesn't budge. What I was concerned with, as far as like Ms. Beaver is the fact that it does say 10 months, 220 days. And I was thinking, and yes, I'm using common sense. I might not be the way it might not be coming out the way it needs to come out. But if we could put it as 11 months, like Ms. Beaver said, for 220 days, that would cover the military's lingo, and it would also cover everything that we need to get done as far as the junior ROTC program is concerned. It's just, from what I see in black and white in front of me, is where it says 10 months. I do understand that you're stating that 10 months is the school year for the teachers, but if it was listed as 11 months, 220 days, 20 days as being the month, maybe that would cover everything and it would run more smoothly. Am I looking too much into it?
No, I don't think you're looking too much into it at all. Many of us have had the same
discussion.
Yeah.
So could it be listed
well,
in the contract as 220 days, 11 months, and we're out of here? We will leave you alone.
Well, I think our intention is the same, and once again, it gets into this, you know, how these things are defined. Because our intention is that, you know, whether you call it 11 or 10, they're 220 days of work is what they're doing. But I think the 10-month really is something that the Army is requiring rather than something we'd like to have. Right there.
We would like to just 220 days.
And not put months or anything.
That's right.
And, you know, I looked at it like that also, but I thought if it said, and I looked at the Junior ROTC website to print off their guidelines. And they normally, with 10 months, if you do it 200 days, 10 months, which is a teacher calendar year, that would give just the basic programs for the children. They wouldn't have like the Raider competition, they wouldn't have the drill team and things like that on the weekends. So if they do 11 months, 220 days, that covers your summer, well, depending on when the calendar starts for the instructors, that would cover your summer Camp Dawson. So they wouldn't have to come before you to say, can we have 8 more days?
Those things make perfect sense.
Thank God. Would you tell my husband that, please?
Well, but there are days, even during the 200-day school year, like you heard Ms. Gandy say, like at Christmas and Thanksgiving, that those days are outside the school calendar. They don't count part of those 200
right.
days. That at times teachers that get extra employment days use those as part of those days.
Right.
So nothing would prevent them from doing that too. But no, we totally understand what you're saying, because many of us, you know, we've had the same things. We've just unclear because we're so used to what 20 days.
Well, and military, you have the acronyms that you have to have everything in black and white, and if it's not in black and white and it's not wrote down, they don't listen. But that's our main goal. Our children, as you see, they come home and said, okay, Mom, we're seeing all this stuff in the paper. Do something. Stand up for us. So that's the reason you're looking at me.
Are there not other counties that have their employees on the 220-day calendar?
Yes. It's 220, 11 months is the way they've got it wrote up with the different. Because there is right now, another thing I wanted to point out with the Junior ROTC program, there is 1,000 schools waiting for this program. If Fort Knox pulls it, Lincoln County will never get it back. And with the military, if it's not in black and white, we've lost it.
Well, it's like I said, Mr. McKibben and I spoke with Mr. Savine
Yes.
This morning, and I said to him that there has never been any intention from the board or from our office to jeopardize that program in any way. And we had a very nice conversation, you know, and as he explained, and we were on the same page, they are not employees of the Army.
They're employees.
They're employees of the school system.
Right, but, and I understand where they, you know, the Army does pay, the junior ROTC program pays 50% of their salaries, and there's grants and things like that that comes into Lincoln County for this program. You know, I understand there's a lot of red tape. I just want to know, pardon the pun, I'd rather go to the horse's mouth and say, okay, explain to me what's going on so that when I go home, my child doesn't look at me and say, Mom, did we accomplish anything, or are we going to get cut? So as they're standing there waiting to make sure, is it going to be the 220 days, 11 months? Is that what the Army will pass and our instructors will get? Or will it be listed as 220 days, the 10 months? That's what I'm trying to ask, because that's what they had asked me the whole time we was coming in here.
Well, we're getting into semantics again here.
Right.
You know, we're going to say they're going to have 220 days. I don't know that we can ever get the Army and us to agree on what this month thing should be, but I think we could agree that 220 days is 220 days that they work, and that's kind of our position on it. And once again, we have never gotten any indication from them, and you've heard Ms. Candy say for 5 or 6 years they've had this same contract, that there's any questioning about that. This is the very same contract that they've had for these several years. Should come through the superintendent's office, any concern that something is in jeopardy, I assure you that that will be of utmost concern to us, and we'll deal with it if we need to. But we've never gotten that indication, and this has been the same contract they've had for these years.
Okay, so it'll start at the beginning of the school year, and then it would be just 220 days straight? Or is that just 220 days of like the week, Monday through Friday?
Bertie said it a while ago. Tomorrow is the first day for our teachers.
Uh-huh.
But then they work a 200-day calendar. Now, in school months, each is a 20-day month. But not every day is counted. Now, usually they do at this time of the year. But then when you get into Christmas and Thanksgiving and all, those are out of the calendar time. So our teachers don't get paid for those things.
Correct.
So those days aren't a part of that. So that's why when we go from August the 8th to June the 4th, there's 200 work days for our staff there.
So then AIRS would carry on 20 days?
Well, or it could be used in those days, like I said before. There might be something going on over Christmas, and they get with Mr. Sachs and say, you know, I want to use one of my 20 days to do that. Then that could be approved. Or it may be they wait till school's out and use them then.
How many
Okay.
kids go to Camp Dawson?
And, I mean, once again, there's some flexibility there, whether it's the anybody that has a supplemental contract. Mr. Midkiff there, he works 240 days. And realizing there's about 21 extra days, he comes to Miss Lucas and tries to ask when he can maybe take off sometime, and she reluctantly lets him do it. But it's the same with them. They will work so many days, 220 days. And when those days will be between them and getting with their supervisors to schedule those additional days. Because the 200 days are established by the schools by our calendar. Ms. Candy.
Let me make a comment. I think I see where you're coming from. Their employment starts on July 1. So they have from July 1 to June 30th to get those 20 extra days in. Okay, so, I mean, their first day doesn't have to be August the 8th. They can work, you know, so many days in July and then so many days in June. The only thing they have to do is follow the 200 days school calendar. So, you know, if they want to work on July 1, 2, 3, 4, they're, you know, that's an option for them, okay? So we're real flexible outside of that calendar. And, you know, like I said, nothing has changed. So there, you know, there shouldn't be, your program shouldn't have changed and what's going on shouldn't have changed because we haven't changed anything. And they can start July 1 and they can wrap up their 220 days on June the 30th. And the, you know, you want 220 days, and that's what they're giving them. The months is just a financial issue that I have to deal with, the Army and I deal with. But they're 220 days regardless of the months. That's just you know.
So they have to wrap up by June the 30th?
Everybody wraps up June the 30th. We're on a fiscal year, we start July 1 and we end June 30th. So I'm a 240-day person, you know, I choose kind of where I work those 240 days, but, you know, I start July 1, I have to be, you know, end up by June 30th. Same thing with ROTC guys, you know, they can start their first day on July 1 and they can have their 220th day on June the 30th. So they're flexible outside of that school calendar.
The 20 days.
The 20
They
days.
have to work the school calendar, because they have.
Right,
to use
correct.
Those 20 days,
Yeah.
as she said, they can use them.
So they could use them like June, July, and August, the 3 months that were,
Well, they would start July 1, they could use the July through the next June 30th. And then the new school year starts in July, so their next 220-day contract starts over.
okay, I understand now. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me. Now my husband might be able to take a break tonight.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Ms. Mead.
Miss Gandy,
Yes,
is there grants that come in for the ROTC?
not to my knowledge.
I haven't seen any that comes by us.
No,
I didn't know
not to my
that.
knowledge.
I didn't think so.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll stick in the same vein here, and we'll ask Savannah Lovejoy if she'd like to speak to the board. Go ahead, Savannah.
I have no idea about all this calendar stuff. All I know is that if you can't come to some kind of agreement with the Army, and they're hard to agree with, they're gonna take our program. They kind of like things their way or no way. They're just particular like that. So I'm just asking you to consider to cooperating with what not cooperating with them would mean. If we can't cooperate with them, we're gonna lose, you know, our entire lives. I mean, we practice all the time, we compete all the time. We've been to nationals. This is a big deal to us. This program is really important to us. Our instructors have taught us everything. I mean, we've had a lot of people who we all started out going down really difficult paths, and then when we came to JROTC, Colonel Plumley and Sergeant Major Atkins led us in the right direction. They wanted us to know that there's better stuff out there and that we can do more positive things with our time. So I'm just asking you to consider, even though it's not necessarily the way you do things, that's the way the Army wants it, and I don't know how flexible they're willing to be on the subject, but it'd be really important to us as students that we don't lose our program.
Well, as I stated earlier, Mr. Midkiff and I spoke with Mr. Sovine today, who is over the West Virginia part of the JROTC. And according to him, everything is fine. There is nothing absolutely out of the, in any way jeopardizing the program here.
And that's not exactly what Fort Knox is telling us.
Well,
Mr. President,
yes, sir.
who told you we was about to lose the program? Where'd you get the information?
Sergeant Major Atkins.
Who?
Sergeant Major Atkins.
Have you heard anything about Mr. Sachs losing the program?
I have not heard anything. I think there was an email correspondence to Mr. Midkiff and Ms. Lucas indicating that they felt like the Army was not cooperating with the county's contract, but it was just a email transmission from Mr. Plumley.
As you stated earlier, the battalion commander of all of West Virginia, of JRTCs, he called and contacted you. From what we understood, that there was no compromise made with the JRTC, or the Army and the board, that the JRTC program will be put on a 90-day probation. And we're here today. We had no knowledge that he contacted you. We are just here to stress to you guys how important JRTC is to us, and we ask you guys to make the, work with the Army and come to a compromise. But you you've already done that, so, you know, good.
The conversation went quite well. Do you agree, Mr. McKipp?
I agree.
And then he followed up with an email with us, you know, right after that.
Yes, it was, from what we understood, it was just if the battalion commander of West Virginia, if you guys didn't come to a compromise, he was putting Lincoln County DRTC on probation and he was going to vote.
Once again, you know, we can't rely on hearsay. Many things are said. What we're going to rely upon the conversations that the superintendent had with them, that, and I'll restate what I said earlier, we have never been advised that our program is in any jeopardy in writing. If that were going to happen, we would receive something in writing. And should we receive such, we will deal with it. But, you know, we can hear things, hearsay, gossip all the time, for whatever motivation that may come from. But once again, we think the program is worthwhile. We want to keep the program. And if we hear any indication at all that there's some kind of concern, we will certainly deal with it. But we have not received that. If something that severe were going to happen, it would be in writing, and it would be addressed to the superintendent and the board, and we would address it. But that has not happened.
Well, in the military, and it goes down to JRTC too, we run on a chain of command. You know, the information that we get from our superiors is what we have to go by. So, I mean, it's not so much a rumor that we're hearing, it's our superiors telling us
Let me
this
say
stuff.
this, please. The military works in a very, I guess, cliche military fashion. That involves much paperwork, as I'm sure you'll concur. We have not received any of that. And once again, if that were going to be the case, I'm sure that this would be something in writing and not just done verbally. It would be done that way. I feel even more assured since the superintendent has just spoken with them today and said that there's money issues here. And we can't, once again, go on what somebody may have said. If it's that big of a concern with the military, they'll convey that to us in writing, and then we will deal with it then.